We got a big trade update for you today as Habs defenseman Jordan Harris is on the recent Sportsnet top 30 targets list for the trade deadline, with them linking him to the Calgary Flames. We gotta dive into these rumors, plus the Habs make some moves as they send down Lucas Condotta to make room for Alex Newhook and his season debut coming up tomorrow. We got that plus a note about David Reinbacher, all in this episode of Habs Digest. And we're just gonna dive right into it. I know you guys love it. We dive right into the news, and we got some insane company for David Reinbacher. So I'm going to show you this tweet first and foremost from Thibaut Châtel. He did a bit of a rerun of his prospects model, which projects the average career until 30 years old in a given league. For Swiss players or players playing in Switzerland, ranking is on the top probability too good / elite if playing in the NL. Reinbacher is now second best. So that may seem like a bunch of weird to read. I know it is, but basically, in essence, you're going to look at this list and see all the players in the NHL probability of guys who are playing who have played in the NL. Well, at the top of the list was Austin Matthews, who we all know is probably the best goal scorer in the NHL at this point, far and away the top of this list. But second place in Thibaut's model is David Reinbacher. Yeah, as the win share is interesting. I'm not sure exactly how this is ranked, but regardless, Reinbacher is second in his model this season. And guess what? Reinbacher also has the 5th place spot from last season. Both of these seasons better than any season Roman Josi ever had in the NL before coming over to the NHL. And you also see names like Kevin Fiala down there. He's among Marco Rossi, who's finally breaking out at least a little bit this year for the Minnesota Wild. Martin Rayway, I believe he had an illness. So, but still, there's a lot of awesome names there. Basically, you see this season and last season, Reinbacher too good for the league. And this is just outstanding news. And I know a lot of Habs fans, including us at times, have been a little down on Reinbacher. There were some points of the season where things just didn't seem to go his way. Of course, there was a bit of turmoil surrounding the team, although maybe that wasn't as exaggerated as we may have been led to believe. Of course, a couple of coaching changes this year. The team was tanking to the bottom of the standings, but as of late, they've been on a nice little streak. Now, they were on quite a big winning streak. I believe that ended. But regardless, Reinbacher has been getting heavy run in pretty much every single game. He is probably their most used defenseman and one of the most crucial pieces on his team over there at EHC Cloton. And you know, when you don't have a prospect in North America to really monitor constantly, it's really hard to give him an evaluation because, as we know, these European hockey leagues, whether it's the SHL in Sweden, whether it's Liga in Finland, whether it's the NL in Switzerland, there's so many more, right? And we're looking at these leagues. It's harder every single year to compare that talent level to the NHL because these talent levels are always changing. So when you see Reinbacher out there maybe not getting a point for 5 games, you hear he had a bad turnover there that led to a goal, this kind of stuff, it's easy to form conclusions. And while I will also admit, while I watch the Reinbacher highlights that I can, I find it tough to stay really up to date and figure out exactly how he's playing. But these kind of models, while not perfect, paint a great picture. Again, reminder, this guy is still a teenager and he's getting some of the most run on his Swiss team. And even at the age of 18, 19 in that first season last year, he was ranked in the too good for this league category. And you see the other names there that came to the NHL, fantastic players. Kevin Fiala, a point per game guy, 30-40 goal scorer a lot of the time, and not every season, but still. And then you see Roman Josi, Norris winner, dude is straight up has been one of the best defensemen in the NHL for the better part of a decade. And then Austin Matthews, the guy who's on pace to score almost 70 goals this year. So it's to see Reinbacher among that company is really well, it makes me really excited. Right? It's relieving in a lot of ways to see that. So awesome stuff. I hope you guys found that interesting because when I saw that today, I was thrilled. So yeah, good news from David Reinbacher, and I can't wait to see him over in North America. We're going to move off of David Reinbacher a little bit and transition to a couple of roster moves. And oh boy, we were waiting for this day. And the Habs, despite scoring 5 goals in their last outing versus what seemed to be a Washington Capitals team that had very little effort, very little going for them. It was strange. It looked like they were the ones tanking and not the Montreal Canadiens. But despite that 5-goal performance, Montreal has struggled in a lot of games this year to find their offense. But hopefully that spark is coming back because the first thing we got to talk about is the fact that Alex Newhook is coming back to the Habs tomorrow. Of course, the Habs have 2 games this weekend, 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, Saturday, and 1 p.m. Sunday. I believe it's Dallas and St. Louis. I could be wrong on the teams, but still 1 p.m. both days. But Alex Newhook, he's coming back. He's making his season, not season debut. He's making his return. I guess you can say debut in a way. I'm not sure what I said in the intro, but regardless, he's coming back, and I couldn't be more excited. As you guys know, I love Alex Newhook, and his pace, his speed is going to bring such a different dynamic to this team, and we actually saw him in practice today getting reps on the first power play. We were wondering who that replacement for Sean Monahan was going to be. Well, it turns out it's not Tanner Pearson like last game might have led us to believe. It's going to be Alex Newhook. Just ignore what the second power play is, all right? Don't go looking at Arber Buster's tweet about the second power play. I'll tell you, give you a bit of insider info in case you didn't know. You got Xhekaj at the point. I believe it's Xhekaj at center with Josh Anderson, Jesse Ullinen, and I forget who the other player is. But yeah, not the best second power play, but it's the first power play is cool though. It's Newhook, Slafkovsky, Caufield, Suzuki, and not Monahan, Matheson. So it's a fantastic first power play. Glad to see Newhook back. Of course, to make room for him, we had to send down Lucas Condada, who did his job. He actually really looked like he was playing with a lot of effort, and when he was on the ice, he was at least semi-noticeable, and his line seemed to perform fairly well relative to expectations. So shout out to him. He had a great little stint there, and Brandon Xhekaj is staying up. This is something we said. This is something we talked about in the last video. Like they signed him to a two-way deal, and he was on the roster. Their plan wasn't to send him down because he could get claimed by waivers. And when you think about it too, teams don't always necessarily like look at these guys and say, oh no, it's an AHL guy, we'll let him pass. Now this dude is good in the AHL. He's fast, he can make an impact. So shout out to Xhekaj, but just super happy Newhook is back, ready to make his season return. And yeah, hopefully he brings that little aspect of speed and maybe a little more life. Even though the power play did well last game, a little bit more life than Pearson did. Of course, we've seen Newhook and Slafkovsky team up on goals before. I hope we can see some more. But now into the juicy stuff. Sportsnet. They released their top 30 trade targets, and while Jake Allen was actually the first one mentioned, that could be because it was alphabetical. Now that I'm thinking about it, that's probably what it was. I could be wrong. I don't know. He was at the top, but I scrolled down, and I kept reading. I was reading some interesting players. I was reading some interesting guys. Of course, Noah Hannafin. I was reading about Morgan Frost, who I thought is actually really interesting. The Flyers apparently want to move on from Morgan Frost. He's a 24-year-old center, on pace for about 48 points this year. Anyway, just going to leave that there. Not going to go into that too much in this video, but we got to talk about Jordan Harris. And so here's what they said. I'm not going to read this whole thing for you, but he's on this list. And a guy that maybe we didn't expect, though actually after the show yesterday, he was a guy I mentioned to Jesse as a kind of crazy trade target the Habs could move. And guess who appears on the list the next day? It's like they were listening. But they basically say at the end there's some untapped offense there, and that should be enticing. His defensive profile should be attractive too. For just $1.4 million against the cap next season, there's reason to believe he can help now and prove to be a valuable piece for the future. We think of at least one team that'll be moving defensemen out and look to replace them between now and the deadline. Watch out for the Calgary Flames on this one, and that makes sense. There's a lot of rumors surrounding the Calgary Flames, especially surrounding Noah Hannafin and Chris Tanev. So those two are probably on the way out. Now that's actually a pairing right now. I believe they played together in Calgary, and when you look at those two, it's like, okay, left and a right-handed defenseman, but guess what? Harris can play both. While he's definitely weaker on the right side, of course, he's a left-handed shot. He's a natural left defenseman. He has played right before, so Calgary, like, they might look to bring him in. And we'll just actually take a quick look at Calgary's roster. I'll bring up the screen share here. So if we look here at their defensemen, right, we see the likes of Weegar and Anderson. That's a solid top pairing. Of course, it is what it is. They got Weegar from that Matthew Tkachuk trade. But you see the second pairing is Hannafin and Tanev. And below them, it's like Shillington, who's awesome to see him back and like playing again. I really love to see Oliver Shillington. But they got Braden, I believe it's Pachal. I'm not totally sure, but they claimed him off waivers because they wanted another defenseman. And a lot of Flames fans liked this waiver pickup. He's an RFA after 2025. Why not go for him? And then, of course, their scratches have been Jordan Esterly and Dennis Gilbert, who are sort of veterans, just kind of eating up minutes. And Esterly's had a solid career. But when you look at this defensive core, you can't tell me that you can't see Jordan Harris slotting in, maybe not even on the bottom pairing, but in that second pairing, especially if they end up moving off of Noah Hannafin. Jordan Harris could be a perfect fit for the Calgary Flames because, look, the Habs have a logjam. It's no secret. We know the Habs have too many defensemen, and they need to make room for some of their young guys. Now, I'm not saying trade out everyone and run only young guys. We've talked about the drawbacks of that before. You know, if you move Matheson and Savard, you need to keep some of these guys. But when you're looking, you need to make room for Lane Hutson. Clear the Arber Xhekaj as part of their plans. Habs are shutting down trade calls on him, as they probably should. Cayden Guhle, clearly part of their long-term plans. Matheson, I doubt he gets moved this year. I might end up eating my words, but I really don't think so. I think he's here for at least the next couple seasons, probably till the end of his contract or at least close to it. And that's three left-handed defensemen right there. And then you just have Jordan Harris on the outside looking in, not to mention Jaden Struble. So it's like, it's really tough, right? And you also got Lane Hudson knocking on the door. Like, there's so much stuff. And even on the right side, even if Harris decides to transition full-time to the right side, well, you still got Savard again for now. You got Mailloux kind of on his way up. You have Justin Barron that's looking to make the waves. And then you also have David Reinbacher. So while Harris might actually fit, you know, better in the depth chart as a right D, it's not his natural position, and it's a place he's been weaker. So moving him, I think, is actually a good idea. And I really like Jordan Harris. Of course, he's always been an analytics darling. He's had a very solid defensive profile, and we've seen some of that untapped offensive potential. He's maybe not getting the run he could get with another team. I believe he's quite a good player, and I think if he gets sent to the right situation, he could truly thrive. But at this point in Montreal, I don't think it's the best situation for him to really develop into what he could be. Am I saying he's going to be a top pairing guy? Is he going to be a star? Not necessarily, no. But what I do see Jordan Harris being, I could think he can be a very solid second pairing defenseman, a guy who can even jump into your penalty kill or maybe a power play, although that is I'm a little more uncertain on. Regardless, I quite like Jordan Harris, and I think he could be good in the right situation. So when you're looking at Calgary, they're going to have to ship these guys out. They're going to, they're probably going to ship some of these guys out. And then they're probably going to want someone to bring them in. So if you see Noah Hanifin on the move, you see Chris Tanev on the move, you see Calgary start shipping out defensemen, don't be surprised if they come calling for Jordan Harris, because, you know, there are definitely some other teams that he could fit on. I think there's actually a lot of teams that could probably benefit from having him. Like, he is straight up better than a lot of teams' bottom pairing defensemen, right? Montreal just happens to have a big logjam. Not every team has that kind of logjam, and a lot of teams might be willing to give up some decent compensation for him. But Calgary's the glaring one, right? With all the rumors around their defense, and I think they could make a swing for it. So let me know what you guys think down below. Do you think Calgary's a good fit? Because I really do. But even if you don't think it's Calgary, give me some other teams that you think might want Jordan Harris down below. Would love to hear from you. But that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. We're pushing for 11,000 subs, guys. We're less than 500 subs away. So if you could hit that button, we'd really appreciate it. I've been your host, Josh Gosse. I'll catch you in the next one.